Hello, Jan Montarsi here. I wanted to introduce you to a new tool I came up with. It's called the BANGLE Builder, and it's to make polymer clay, scrap clay bangle cores that you can then cover with whatever veneers for decoration that you like. I hope you enjoy my short demo here, and you can exclusively get this tool on createalong.com. I will have the link to the tool in my description, along with my other tools that you can find there also. Thanks for watching. Hello folks. I just wanted to show you a new tool I designed. It's for making bracelet blanks. These are some bracelets I made for a class I teach called Mosaic Bangles. And these are the blanks that they're built on. And you can see these are rough because they're underneath the good clay. And a little bit more about these later. But the tool I designed allows you to make really nice, perfect bangle bases that you can then line and then decorate as you wish. And I debuted this last week in Florida at the Clay Play Stay Retreat. And right now they're selling two sizes. And the difference is the depth. The depth of the trough, okay? Now these look like bead rollers. And I hope other 3D printers that make and sell stuff do not rip us off. Kira and I have been working a while on this tool, and it's just not a nice thing to do. And I will call them out if I see it, but that's about all I can do. So, this is a brand new one. You can see they're sharp, they're 3D printed, you know, and it doesn't have to be smooth here. You're not making this all in one step. This is a multi-bake process. But sometimes when you get 3D things, there's a little rough spot. So, I'm going to put a piece of plastic over here so I don't get dust on my clay. So, sometimes you need to, and I would do this anyway, just for safety's sake. Is that one done? Here, this one's done. You can see where it's a little whitish there. That's because I sanded it, okay? Because you need it smooth there. Just like when you're weaving and you have a shuttle that you're pushing back and forth through yarn that's pointed on the end, you need that little bit of a open end here so that it doesn't catch. And you'll see when I get there. But to remedy that, just a quick, just at the edge, a quick sand. This is 400 grit sandpaper, just to round out that edge. And if there's anything sharp corners, I take those off too. And that's, you do that on both ends, and you can see it just helps it glide over the clay better while you're using it. Okay, so now there's two different sizes here. And what that does is it gives you a different profile. Either this one has a higher profile. I don't know if you can tell the difference. This is a smaller bracelet. And this one has a slightly lower. Not much difference, but it can make a matter of weight and comfort. So buy them both. I'm sure they're not going to be that much, but buy them both and use them both. So I'm going to use the deep one today. That's the one I just had. I'm going to use the deep one today. Now, this is scrap clay. This is a great way also to use up all your scrap clay. And what you want to do is we're going to be building a pyramid of strips. They need to be 10.5 to 11 inches long. Now my glass here, it's 2, 4, 6, 8. So I'm going to go in the middle first. And I actually just use this tool to cut the first strip. And this clay is on a number 2 on my pasta machine. You can start at a 0 thinking, oh, if I have a thicker sheet, it'll be faster to build my pyramid with the right amount of clay. But instead of having 3 layers of clay high with a 0, you're better off having 4 with a thinner layer because it helps you form it faster. So I'm going to take this, and I'm using right there those 2 points, and I'm just going to cut my first strip. This does not have to be perfect. Okay, there's my first strip, and that also kind of bevels both sides. Now on top of this, I want to measure this real quick. That's 5, 10, so yeah, I got plenty. I'm going to actually cut a little off the end because I don't need that much. Why do more work than you need to? And this is going to stretch out a little bit. So there's our first strip, and you can see it's just as wide as this, and you can pinch it in a little bit. It really should fit inside these 2 points. Okay, get a little bit more off of there. Okay, that's good. Then I'm going to cut another strip. Now to measure my next strip, I probably could have gone thinner on this. I set this on the side of the clay and just make a mark. Okay, and then I want to cut inside of that so that it's narrower than this. And it's just a guide. It does not have to be perfect. It's more important that it's the same width end to end. And we're going to stack that right down the middle. Give it a rub. And then the next strip should be thinner than that. And I'm just eyeballing it. Okay. So just from experience, and you're going to have to practice this a little bit. I'm pretty sure I have enough clay. Okay, and I'm just going to first rub it, and you can see what I mean by a pyramid. Let me show you the end of this. See how it's stacked in a pyramid? Okay, so I'm just pinching this in a little bit. You need a plastic deli sheet. Now these are long this way. Usually what I buy on Amazon is this one. And these are $12 roughly a box. These are 10.75 inches by 8. And if you have the shorter ones like this, just use them diagonally. Okay, and you may even get end to end, but you don't want the clay hanging out because it'll gunk up your tool. Anyway, I like the long ones because we're going to be going over this multiple times and I can just keep moving it along. You can also, if you don't have these deli sheets, you can also use grocery store bags cut into strips. Just don't use any of the ink part of the bag. It will stain your clay. So I have that on there. I smooth my plastic down. And I'm just lightly going to slide this back and forth. Okay? And I'm sure you can't see it, but everything's rounding down. Don't press hard and press in the middle. You want the ends to float, whatever direction you're going. If I'm going this way, I'll put more pressure on this end or in the middle so that this doesn't gouge into the clay. And back and forth. You can also just keep your hand in the middle and go back and forth. I'm right here. I'm putting some pressure on it. And now I'm doing more pressure. Now, when you know if you need to sand your tool on both ends, if your paper rips, it'll catch. But this has not ripped. And I'm going to show you what I'm at now. See, this is all rounded down. And instead of it being a pyramid now, it's more rounded. But you can see I still have some gaps. What we're looking for is a nice smoothing. So I'm going to cut another thin strip. And you don't want to cut a thin sheet and lay it over the whole thing because you'll trap air. So I'm going to add another thin strip. On the top. And let the tool do its work. Okay, so now I'm over it. I'm just going to smooth that in a little bit. And gently go back and forth to start. Okay, then I'll start putting more pressure. See, now I just gouged into there, and that's because I pressed down. So press from this end, and when we're going that way, press on this end. Sorry for the creaking noise of my table, but it is what it is. Now let's look at, yeah, those gaps are starting to fill in. Sorry. And you can take a blade and slide underneath of it and release it, because there's a lot of tension between the clay and the work surface that doesn't allow the clay to move. If you want to, you can just scrunch it in a little bit. That'll get you more volume of clay in the same space. Then go back. Move your plastic down. A little crooked there, but that's okay. Just go over it lightly. And let's go back and forth. And eventually you will get a nice, perfectly formed, half dome bracelet blank. I'm going to show you how to put it on a form in just a second. What do we got here? I still have a few little gaps here and here. So I'm going to go with one more piece. Just a little. And like I said, when you get used to doing this, you will know what thickness of clay and how many strips. Usually it's 4 strips for me on a number 2, but I just remembered I used my Makin's machine and not my Atlas, so that could be the difference for me right now. Pushing that down. Oh, this squeaky table. All right. There, now it's very good and smooth. This is very meditative. It's almost like giving somebody a massage. Now, you'll see that some thin clay came out on the edge there. Just cut that away with a stiff blade. And if you have any gaps, you can put that extra clay right there in a gap. I'm going to do this side. Put some of that clay down here toward the ends. And you can always press your ends in a little too. The ends tend to taper, and you're going to be cutting that off. You have extra length there. We'll do a couple more passes, and we'll probably be done. When you have bumpy stuff like that at this end, just start light. Pressing in the middle or at one end going towards the other direction. And I'm really sorry about the squeak. Okay, now I'm going to show you the profile we have. Now you can see we're almost rounded. There's a little bit of a dimple there. Now, it does not have to be perfect. Remember, you're going to be adding a layer of clay over top of this. So you will have your base, and you can see these have the 3D printer grooved lines in them. That's how I know when it's usually done, when I see those lines. So I'm going to do it a few more times. Let me grab a fresh paper. I have plenty of clay here. I just need to work it a little bit more. Some of it's coming out on the ends, on the edges along here. I find it better doing it two hands. It's a more even workout, and it's not hard. Oops, I just dug in. You can see where I dug it. It made a dent like that. And that's fine, just keep going over it. I'll clean up some of that edge. And if it's a very thin amount, don't worry about it. Because after we make this, we'll just give it a quick sand. And that little chaff will come right off. But I like to move it out of the way. All right, let's do a little bit more. This end's a little sparse here. I'm just going to lift it up and push it in a little bit. That'll put some more volume of clay right there in that spot. All right, and we're just about done. Okay, I'm going to call that done. Now I'm going to take it off my work surface. Okay, there's the bottom. There's the top. Nice and warm and flexible. I'm not really concerned about this little bit of clay there. If you want, you can just, take a blade and cut that off, but I'm not really worried about it. Then this is what I use, and Kira at Create Along will be selling these along with the tools. This is a glass jar. Okay, let me talk a little bit about sizes here. Well, let me get this on here first. First thing I do is I drape it across and I turn it a little bit. You want to get it on there straight. And I just look as I'm doing it. Okay, so then when I think I got it pretty much straight, do not stretch it. Let it touch the glass. And then I turn it over. And then put one end down. Now you see how little I have there. I could have made my piece longer, but this is fine. I've made enough of these. This is fine. I'm actually going to reverse this because that way I'll be cutting off more of that end. And I do have a gap there, so I'm going to have it extra here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a sharp blade and I'm cutting on an angle through both of those. I'm going to peel this side back, remove that. and it's touching the glass here and here. I'm going to bring that together. Try not to dent it, but you want to join it. Look on the inside. I don't know if you can see on the inside right there. There's a little bit of a gap, so I'm going to just try to adjust it to close that gap. Now the gap in there is almost closed, but it's fine because we're going to refine this right on the glass jar. And to me, this is the best part of this tool. I'm going to take it first and knock back that chaff just a little bit. I see it. It's not a big deal. Okay. And make sure I'm straight. I'm kind of humping up on this side, but that's all right. I'll fix that in a second. And then you want to make sure that all around your glass, it's touching and there's no gaps. I'm like rolling my finger. I'm not denting the clay. I'm just rolling it a little bit to touch it to the glass. Okay. Now, here's one of my short ones. Now what I'm going to do, first I'm going to start at the seam. Here's the seam. You can see a little bit of the overlap. This is so much better than rolling a log and trying to cut a log in half the whole length. Okay, there's my seam. Now first I'm going to take this form, hold my glass good, and I'm going to go from both directions towards the seam. And I'm pressing here in the middle against the jar over top. And I'll turn it around and go from this side. This refines the shape after you've handled it and put it on the glass jar. And then after I've gone over the seam a few times, now you can see my seam inside. I hope you can see that right here is closed. And I've had a few of these that did come apart at the seam, which was my fault after I baked them. I just super glued them together and built my bracelet around it, and it was perfectly fine. I'm going to put this on one more time. It's nice when it goes all the way around. Like that. Because then you can just use this and just work all your way around. Don't worry about wrinkles from the plastic. You're going to cover this. I got off camera a little bit, so I just wanted to show you this again. You saw the seam. This is just me going all the way around. Covering it, heating the plastic down a little bit. You're using cane builder, or the bangle builder, to refine the shape. Just going all the way around. And it's kind of hard to... Anyway, and it's nice when your paper goes all the way around because it really refines it. And I'm pressing here against the jar. Anyway, I'll give you a better idea. And let's see if we can see it. I'm looking for the seam on the inside. You can, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. I don't think you can. Right there it is. It's right here. And you can see how well it's closed. And like I said, the chaff will take off extra later. This is going in the oven. So then, let me clean a little bit of this up here. when this comes out of the oven, you let it fully cool on the jar. Let the jar cool off. And I'll talk about using cans or something else in a minute. But this size, why I like this size. Okay, after it cools, it's stuck to the jar, okay? Then I put the jar in warm water and let it set, and it will pull off either end. There's a little tiny bit of a ridge there, but not enough to make it think. But when you put it in warm water and you start pulling up towards the top, it's flexible enough. But when you bake clay, do not try to do it hot, because the clay does not get its full strength until it fully cools. Like if you made something like an earring or something flat like this, pull it out of the oven and it's hot and you bend it, it will break. It doesn't mean it's not baked properly, but once it cools off, it's not going to break, okay? So let it cool, then put it in warm water, the whole jar and everything, and then you should be able to work your way around and it'll come right off the top. And if it does break, like I said, super glue the seam. It'll be fine. Now, I just taught this class in Florida last week, and these are all three the same bangles. And, you know, I was worried about size. None of these fit me. I got big man hands, so I didn't know, you know. None of them. I can't get any of them on. So what I did was I made 4 of them. And this orange one's weird looking because I'll tell you about that in a minute, okay? So what these are, and I have different color liners. So after you make this, and you take it out off your jar, and you take, I use 220 grit sandpaper, and you put it like that, and you just flip it on both sides on wet sandpaper on your counter, face up like this. I hope you can see that. And that will get rid of that chaff, okay? Then you're gonna pick a color of clay for your interior. Now, let me get back to these lines. There's 3 different ones here. This is a thin gray layer on the inside here on my number 5 setting. This is a bright green one on my number 3 setting on my Atlas. And this is a black color. It's on a 0 thickness. That's what makes these bracelets different sizes. Now this one was baked and has no lining on. If you're gonna do one and you don't want, and you've tried this and you know this size without any lining will fit your hand, then you, instead of using scrap clay, use the color of clay you want for your lining, okay? So that one has no lining. 0 on my pasta machine, 3 on my pasta machine, 5. This way, if I make these and I'm going to sell bracelets, I have samples that people can try on. You know, if you're going to make one to order, or you can just make various size. Now, having said that, this one was made with the form, and well, actually all these were made with the form. This one was made on a Pepsi can. It is very, very small, but to my surprise, of the 25 women that were at my class, 2 or 3 of them could get this on their hand and they would wear this one. So this is on a Pepsi can, and it has like probably a number 3 lining on it. Not very thick. All right. And this one is, I can tell by holding it up here. Okay, this one was made on the jar, and the lining was the number 3, okay? And this one was done with no lining. So my clay was blue. My instead of using scrap clay, I used blue clay, and then after I baked it, I pulled it off the jar, and I sand everything. These are all nicely sanded. And then you build up to that. So once you do your lining, you bake it again. You put your lining in there and get it nice and smooth. It's a strip of clay. You put liquid clay on the inside. Put your lining in. Take a blade and trim off the excess. and either use a smooth sponge and make your lining nice and smooth. Roll any seam. Then you bake it again. And then you're ready to cover it with whatever veneer you want to put on. These are mosaic veneers that I teach in my class. This is a half mosaic veneer. But anyway, you cover it, and you cover it all the way to the edge. And then you cut that excess clay off this way. Then you bake it again. And when I bake these, I just bake them on a tile, on a piece of paper towel, just like that. They're fine. Then after they're baked, I go through the sanding process to sand them smooth. They're very nice. They're very comfortable. They're medium weight, but they're very easy. I always avoided making bracelets because I didn't know what size to make them. I would say most of the ladies in the class used 0, and they could adjust it. If this one was too tight and this one was too big, they would go, you know, a little thinner than this, but thicker than this. But these were nice to have for my class, so that they could all try them on ahead of time and knew that they're going to make their bracelet all on this jar, and then the lining is what makes the difference in, you know, the fit of the bracelet. Now, this one, I don't have a pop can here. So this one was made on a Pepsi can, which is very small. I don't see how anyone could ever get that over their knuckles, you know, but women have very small hands, some of them. This one was just strips, 3 layers of scrap clay made around the big pop can, the Arizona iced tea, the fat pop can. And this is a lot bigger. I can almost get this one on, but I just made this one for size. I didn't do the thing. I was last minute. I wanted to give them some options in my class. Another thing you can use is any other jar, but this jar is really perfect. The size of it, it's 2.5 inches across the top here, which is probably like a Pepsi can, but then the body is wider. So this is what I use to make all these various sizes. You have lots of options how thick you make your lining. Okay, enough about that. Thing I wanted to show you, I had mentioned other things you can use to bake on. You can bake on pop cans. When you bake on pop cans, you have to crush the can to get the bracelet off, and it's 1 per use. If you have these nice deep cutters, and this is a different set, what you have to make sure is that you can get it on there and still have room to burnish it, whatever cutter might fit you. I have multiple sets. They're all different. This is smaller than the jar. The next one's way too big compared to the jar. But you can see I could make a wider one on this because I have so much room. But order the glass jar. It really is the most usable, perfect size. Bigger than a pop can, smaller than the large pop can, and you have lots of options, and it's reusable. And do not, once you bake this, good and hot, do not put hot glass in cold water. Let it cool naturally, then put it in warm, because hot glass in cold water will shatter. If you grew up in the 70s, we used to do that to glass ashtrays and then glue them together into candle holders. That's a whole other story. But anyway, it crackled the whole glass. So anyway, I just also wanted to go over, I think that covers everything on the bracelet part. And I just wanted to let you know, right now there's 2 versions. The one that's more shallow and the one that's deeper. I used the deeper one here on this one. And you can see how thick the bracelet is. but it's a nice weight. Now I wanted to go over a couple other little things here. There are going to be, I have lots of these, all different sizes and different prototypes. We made a bunch until we got it right. So she will be making more sizes. There will be wider ones. These were prototypes that didn't make the cut. I did make some with them. I made one with this one, and it was shallow and it was nice. And if you want a thin light bracelet, hang on. Let me see if I got it here. Oh, I forgot about that. I'm glad I found it. This was made with a very shallow one. And this is one that broke that I glued back together. But anyway, this one was made and baked on the inside of a tuna can. So the curve, instead of the curve being on the outside of the bracelet, it's on the inside. Makes it very, I can almost get this one on. Ah. It makes it very comfortable on your wrist to wear. And then you have a flat surface to decorate on the outside. You'd put your lining on. You'd put your lining on the inside up to here. Cut it off with your blade. Cut it off this way with your blade. And then bake it. And then you would decorate the whole top surface, which would end up being a little wider because your inside clay is coming up. But makes you a nice flat looking bangle. Here's one I did on a tuna can also. And you're just, instead of working on the outside of a jar, you're putting the flat side on the inside of a tuna can. It's a great shape. You just have to watch. I mean, these are two very different sizes, and the difference are this was made with the thick one and this was made with a very shallow one. Anyway, more sizes of these will be coming. Let Kira know what you like. Do you want a wider one? Now, if they get a certain width, you have to have some depth on them, okay? And another thing you can do, oh, I'll show you this one too. This I made a long time ago, okay? And need something to put it around. Anyway, so when it's on, I don't want to mess this one up. This was actually made on a pop can. So I just wanted to show you a better view of this. This bracelet was formed and baked on a regular Pepsi can. Okay. So then I took a large cutter, which this one is about 3 1/4 inches in diameter. And I have raw clay here, and it's all burnished with my bangle builder to the can. And then I took a large cutter and cut away this side, and then I cut away the other side. Okay, and then I baked it. And then, of course, when it came out, I used some sandpaper in here just to refine the shape of that edge. I can't wait to cover this one. But anyway, this is a great one if you make it on a small Pepsi can or even a smaller cutter. Someone with a small wrist, but it's comfortable. And it doesn't come off, and it doesn't open up from the heat. You see it springs back. And that's because I baked it very hot and very long. And if you use a clay like Kato, which is really strong, this would be an awesome use for Kato clay. So this was made on a Pepsi can. It's not covered yet, so I'll put a lining in it, and I'll put a veneer on it. But even I can get this on, and it stays. I've never had my body. I wore this one day for the afternoon while I was working around the house, and it never did. It never came apart. By the time you add another thin layer, and it's strong and it's flexible. So that's another way you can make cuff bracelets. When you're baking these, when you're baking the cores, bake them extra long and a few degrees hotter. This is Primo clay. So normally I bake at 275. I would bake these at like 280, 285 for an hour. Bake them long and hard because this is your strength. Your strength is in your core. And these are nice and hard and strong, slightly flexible, but they're baked. And then when you add your layers, your inside lining, do a normal bake. When you do outside, do a normal bake. Give it a little extra time because the core's got to heat up. But it's a really fun, easy, fast way to make bracelet blanks. Okay, so I let my bracelet totally cool off. And then after it was totally cool, and the jar was totally cool, I put it in, this is hot to warm tap water, which will make it a little flexible. And then I'm just going to work my way around, and it will pop off. Feel it moving a little bit. And there it goes. Came right off the jar. Okay. And you can see the chaff. Set this out of the way. And I usually do this at my kitchen sink and counter. Now this is 400 grit. I would typically use 200 grit, 220 grit. Water on my counter, water on my paper. And you can see all those pieces of chaff are just coming right off. Turn it in your hand every so often to keep things even. Need a little bit more there, but you get the idea. I'm gonna use this blank and make another video making a full bracelet, lining it and covering it with a veneer. That'll be my next video. But you see that chaff just comes right off. I'm not gonna make you watch me do the rest of it. Probably one more minute. If I had 220 grit sandpaper here, I'd be done already. Okay, it's all the chaff is sanded off. And there's, let me see if I can see it. Here you see a little dip. Don't worry about that, it's minor. If you have any big divots for some reason, press clay into them, smooth them off, bake it 15-20 minutes. But these scratches from the tool, these lines, those are nothing to worry about. Only if it's something big. But this is perfectly ready to cover. See you in my next video. All right, now, a couple more things I just want to go over real quick. This is not supposed to be that long of a video. I just wanted to show you some of the other tools that I designed that are on Create Along. This is an easy back cutter. This is so when you make, and this, I have a class for this on my YouTube. It's the 3 pendant, 3 bail. It's so that you can make hollow domed pendants and use an easy back domed to join the pendant front and the easy back with a layer of raw clay. And you can change your cord out. You can pull lobster claws. So if you have a chain, you want to switch out your pendant to another chain, you can just pull the lobster claw right through there. It makes your pendants light. They come in a set, I believe. Those are on there. These are, and there's 2 versions of these. There's a 6 repeat triangle and a square. And I have videos. This is my broken brain cane. Look for my broken brain cane video. And I show how I use these in it. These are cane builders. They're for perfecting the shape of your triangle canes. And then you're not pushing down to the point, you're actually pushing against the two sides. That's where you're making your sharp edge. And I cover them with tape so that they don't stick, and I can pull them out and it doesn't distort. But these are the cane builders. This one is for making 6 repeat kaleidoscopes, and this one is for making square canes. That has a 45-degree angle. That's another tool that's on Create Along. And then I have my Create template. This has slots and it comes with blades. And you can watch my videos or all on my YouTube. But it's for making quilt patterns and 3D patterns. You can make mosaic tiles with it. You can cut a million tiny squares for doing color mixing. It's an awesome tool. And then my last tool that I have on Create Along are my blend angles. These are triangles, and they're made for making Skinner blends. The large one is called the 180 triangle. So if you cut 2 triangles of clay and put them this way, it's going to be, this is your rollers. This is as wide as a 180 Atlas. Okay, so you're gonna cut 2 triangles, one color, another color, and then I don't fold them. I cut the 2 in half and stack them. And you're gonna blend that triangle. You can also use it this way on the short side on a 150 Atlas. So you'd be making the same amount of clay, but you're gonna have a narrower color change. These little ones, and how I use these are for rainbow blends. Okay, this is a rainbow blend. Okay, this is made on a 180 Atlas. So this would have six triangles cut, you know, every other one, 6 full triangles, and then 2 half triangles at the end to make the full span. And I always use the full span of my pasta machine. Even if I don't need, if I say I just wanted like this color range, well then whatever this red is here, run it all the way to the end and blend the whole thing. You'll get a much more perfect blend, and then you can cut this stuff away and put it back in your pack. This one is the same thing, but it gives you more options. So for a 180, I would need 4 big ones and two half triangles on the ends to make the span. And then it's just 1 less triangle for the 150. I designed these years ago. I used to sell them myself in acrylic, and it was like almost $30 for the set of 4. I think the whole set now in this material, which is really nice, thin, and it's white instead of clear, are only like $12 on Create Along. So I will put a link to my page. I'm trying to get all my products on one page. Everything that I design. Kira makes them all and sells them all now. I just like making stuff and training. I don't want to sell stuff. It's too much of a downer for me. So anyway, I hope you buy the Bangle Builders. These are called Bangle Builders. They should be up shortly. Hopefully this video will come out Monday, April 7th, I think that is. I'm not sure. And they should be up there ready to purchase by then. Thanks a lot. Don't forget to like and share. And please, if you really want to help YouTube content creators, watch the commercials. Let them run. While the commercials are running, run to the bathroom. Go refill your drink. It really helps. The commercials versus watching an entire video or letting it run really is what helps fund YouTube content creators. Thanks so much. Feel free to ask questions on any of these tools. I check every day. You can always also message me on my Facebook page, just Jan Edward Montarsi. I'll have the link to my Facebook page in the description also. Thanks a lot. Happy claying.